So Evan, you're the founder of one of the fastest growing AI startups right now.
That's theoretically true. Theoretically true.
Theoretically.
Correct. Fastest is like a whole term. I think we have been told that we are one of the fastest growing AI companies in the world. I don't know how real or true this is, but boy, have people told it, and boy, would I love for people to believe it.
Because you guys you started the company 6 months ago, and next month you'll be doing around $10 million in annual profit.
Yeah. So we right now we have one cluster online. So we are the company that makes big GPU clusters and sells them and rents them out to people. We're one of the many companies that do this. And we sort of started and we got a cluster online, and that puts us at about $1 million a year in sort of annual profit. And then we have sort of 10 times more compute capacity coming online in March. And you can take $1 million and you can times it by 10. And that's how numbers work.
That is exactly how numbers work.
Yeah.
So to kind of take a step back, I remember sometime late last year, people started coming to the office with like the SF Compute merch. I started seeing it all over Twitter. You guys went viral for a while for like this poster that you put up.
Indeed.
But to start from the beginning, how did you guys even come up with the idea of renting out GPUs?
So we were doing a generative music model company, sort of generative audio company at one point, but mostly we were trying to make a consumer mobile app that was effectively Mid-Journey for music. And so we flew down to LA, and my co-founder dyes his hair because in LA everybody has dyed hair, and so you have to. I think it's the law.
For the valuation or just
no? I think just
socially?
for vibes.
Okay.
I think you have to dye your hair. And we met with these very lovely, wonderful music producers who are still friends today, and they're amazing and great. They actually have a company called iCore today. They ended up starting a company that's sort of works with anime studios and does image generation for workflows at anime studios. So I have to shout them out. iCore is really cool. And they let us stay in their place. And then we were making this music model. And so we went and tried to make a first version, and it was pretty good. And we do the thing that every AI startup does, which is okay, now we have one, let's go scale it up and make the much bigger version of it. And so we go out to the market and try to buy from the existing GPU providers, and sort of everybody says, sorry, no, the minimum purchase is $1 million, and for the amount that you guys need, well, probably $3 million, and we did not have $3 million, which is sad. We had about 400K at the time or so.
You're close to 3 million.
It's close. So we wanted to buy for a month or maybe a few weeks, but we wanted to just buy for the period of time that we needed to scale up our model, and not have to buy this long-term fixed contract.
But most companies weren't selling short-term contracts.
Nobody.
Why not?
Because if you sell a long-term contract, boy, is your market safe. Boy, have you lowered the risk. And if you sell short-term contracts, then every single month, if you sell a month-long contract, every single month you have to sell out or sell a large portion of it, or you go bankrupt. And so that's what we did. So we thought it would be a great idea to instead of doing our music model company, we would just start a competing cloud provider, a competing GPU provider, and just sell sell short-term contracts, and just bet the company every month for 6 months.
Just bet the company?
Yeah. So we would if you cannot sell short-term contracts for the next month, then you sort of don't have any money coming in, and you can't pay your expenses, and then you go under. So
you're telling me right now, if you theoretically don't have any contracts locked in for next month and you're on a month-to-month basis, the company dies.
Yeah, sort of. We've reduced the risk now.
Okay.
It's been 6 months. We've figured out ways to reduce the risk quite a bit, and make this less risky for us. But yeah, for the first 6 months or so, we would just bet the company every month, because well, nobody else in the market wanted to bet their company every month.
I wonder why.
I know, it's crazy. They're crazy, especially because you're not just betting the company every month. You're betting the company selling to startups and to grad students. The people that buy short-term periods of compute is some grad students at Harvard, and they graduate in May, and they have a 100K grant, and they got it from Schmidt Futures or something, and boy, do they just need to buy it right now, and they're never going to recur, and that's the maximum budget that they have. And 100K in this context is very small. 100K, right. Sort of minimum purchase before is $1 million, so 100K is a very small amount of money in compute land. And so no reasonable cloud provider in the world will ever look at the grad student who's going to graduate in May and only spend $100K and think, boy, do I want to bet my company on them. But we would like to, because nobody would sell to us. And so that's what San Francisco Compute is. It's the company that sells to the people who nobody else would sell to.
When you were starting this company, because it would take a significant amount of money, I would assume, to get a company like this off the ground.
Yeah.
How did you convince investors to give you that money? Or were you using like personal funds?
No, we were quite bad at raising from VCs, I think, broadly. In the most part, so we did have a few core investors who sort of provided the sort of initial capital for that. And most of it was Alana Goyle, who runs Base Case Capital. And she's been like maybe our most helpful investor if you are a founder and you are looking for like a great investor to be on your side. Base Case Capital, kabam, there's my shout out. But for the most part, when we were fundraising, we would go out to VCs and they would sort of say one of a few things. First, they would say, sorry, we've actually already invested in one of the many GPU competitors, GPU providers. So thus we cannot invest in you. Or they would say, sorry, wow, there are a lot of competitors already, and so we don't want to invest in you. Or they would say the actual smart answer, which is, boy, does this look like a cash flow business and not a venture business.
Right.
And boy, does it look like you're going to get commoditized. And like probably you will just like immediately die in year 2 or something like that. And we said, well, but like Yunha from Harvard can't buy, like, and like Find can't buy, and like those are our homies, and like all our homies can't buy, like our friends can't buy, like people, like the people who we like and would care about and think are doing really cool projects, like can't buy, and so. We're just going to do it anyway. You can tell us that it's probably all going to die anyway, and that seems like a reasonable thing to do. I think our like actual real answer to that though is that if you like if you're betting on racers and one of the racers comes to you and says, "Hi, there's this really big hole in the road," and another racer comes and says, "There's no hole in the road." What the hell are you talking about? The person who's going to fall in the hole is the person who didn't tell you that there was a hole in the road, who like doesn't know that there's this big looming problem. And so we, like as the San Francisco Compute Company, from the beginning knew that there was this hole in the road, which is that at some point the market, like if you're betting the company every month, you're like betting on the market to not fall off for you for some reason. And so either you have a really good reason to think that the market will continue to exist for some reason, or you have a strategy to handle that. And I think we have a bit of both. Mostly I would say we have a strategy to handle that. That we are not a normal GPU provider in any sense. Like for reasons that we cannot quite reveal yet, I think within a few months, I think that would be like pretty clear that we're not like the standard GPU provider.
And so for you guys to now, you've raised, at that point you raised a little bit of money, and then how did you go from 0 to 1 million in profit? And what does revenue look like for you to have that much in profit?
So revenue for that is roughly 4 million.
4 million a year.
We sort of did this almost immediately, that we got a cluster online. And then, so like our growth has looked like these step functions where you like get a cluster online and then you're fine. And then you like get another cluster online and then you're fine. And then you get another cluster online and so on. So like, basically we only have 1 cluster online right now and we have 2 more coming online in March. Though like clusters, disclaimer, clusters are occasionally delayed, and so on and so on. So who knows? Maybe it can be delayed, but we think we're like relatively confident that it's coming in March. Though we will disclaimer.
But where did the first users come from?
Right, where did the first? We knew everybody personally. I think, or lots of people personally. So my co-founder and I used to run AI Grant. If you're familiar with AI Grant,
Yes.
And so we just like ran the first batch, and then I think for a long time we've just known a lot of people. Also, Alex, my co-founder, was one of the co-founders of Metaphor, which now renamed to Exa, and which is this like sort of language model search company that has been around for like 3 years or so. And for Metaphor, they like bought and operated their own GPU cluster, and had almost similar problems to what we had when we were doing the music model.
And so I think you were in a obviously maybe not to the same scale, but you were in a similar position to a lot of like, I guess, second time founders in SF, where you're building something for a problem that you had, or you're building something to solve a problem of your friends that you know that everyone has kind of like gone through.
Yeah.
What was the process of actually reaching out to these people and saying like, hey, we have the solution? Or did you just throw up a tweet and that was it?
Text message.
Oh, you just texted everyone?
Yeah. If you know everybody who wants to buy, like we wouldn't have done this. Like to do this, you literally have to bet like incredible sums of money and kind of like everything that you're doing on your ability to sell to other startups and to grad students and other folks like us. And we like wouldn't have taken that bet if we weren't like really, really confident that we could sell to lots and lots of people. So yeah, I think we did a bunch of different things that ended up going quite viral. So initially when we started this, we were not thinking of it as a company. We were thinking of it as, oh, how do we just set up a cluster that a lot of startups can use? It turns out for lots of reasons that makes it hard for you to get a loan, because if you like take no margin on it, then you're like you're way more risky and all sorts of problems. So it ended up like being our full-time company instead of just like this side project. But like we did a big Hacker News launch that was very successful. And then
what did the launch look like? You just put a tweet out? I mean,
yeah,
like
we just put like a text
on
message or a text post on Hacker News. It's like, yo, we're like setting up a cluster. It's cheap. It's for startups. Nobody would sell us a cluster. If this is your problem too, please fill out the form here. That was kind of it. Got like 700 points on Hacker News and went to the top. We just like, turns out a lot of people have that problem. Yeah, which we knew, of course, already because like
you had gone through the
like yourself. We had gone through it. All our friends had gone through it, and it was like pretty clear why the existing cloud providers did not want to do this. Is that they risk a large portion of their inventory on selling these short-term contracts to people who won't recur. And if you aren't super embedded in the space, then and you don't know everybody and you don't know what their plans are, then yeah, it looks like a really dangerous, risky bet. And it kind of is a really dangerous, risky bet. It's like not a thing I would recommend other GPU providers doing because it's like kind of dangerous. It's not even a thing I would recommend us doing for a long period of time. But maybe it was sort of our unique advantage was having already known all these people. Also helps that we were the San Francisco compute company, which meant that we could like literally go down the street and like knock on a door in order to sell to somebody. Like I think we met one of our customers at a giant game of tag that I threw.
Were you one of the guys that threw the giant game of tag in the park?
Correct.
There was one that got rained out like recently.
Yeah, we moved it. It's happening.
That's so fun. I'm on the party full for that.
Yeah,
so
either
funny.
this weekend or the next weekend.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
We host these like several 100-person game of tags, or I do, I guess.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, I think we met somebody who ended up like being our customer because we like.
How much was the contract size for them, like revenue?
I don't think I can reveal that.
Okay.
So I won't reveal what individual customers are selling.
Okay.
But the reason I'm like cool sharing our like metrics is because on our website, you can just look at the entire state of the cluster and see like, oh, like how much of it is sold? How much do we have? What's the price? And if you wanted to, you could just, and you had like any knowledge about how the GPU market works, you can just back calculate all of our metrics.
Interesting.
So it's not me revealing anything that isn't literally on the front page of our website.
And then based on the front page of your website, how much would the average kind of consumer pay, or does it vary like drastically?
Like it's going to be somewhere between like 40K and 250K. Like consumer, there's no consumers here.
Or like,
but like companies are like buying in that range. And this is like a small amount of compute sort of. Depending on how your definition of small is.
And so recently, you know, on Twitter, you see a lot of people who bash SF because they say that it's dirtier than it is, or whatever millions of reasons that they have.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you're on the side of SF is back.
Yeah, we're enormously pro San Francisco. We are unbelievably pro San Francisco. We think this is the greatest city in the world. We think there are obvious problems. We should like solve the problems. I think the problems are fixable. But like, boy, is San Francisco great. I think it's a pretty good like mentality of San Francisco compute.
When you say that, you know, some of the like the problems are fixable, which problems are you referring to?
I think we should build a lot of housing, and I think we probably should like arrest some drug dealers and such. It seems like really sort of standard things, but yeah.
And so I remember, I think one of my friends, Will, he texted recently in all the group chats that we're in for everyone to vote in the elections.
Yeah.
So as someone who is a startup founder, you've now built a few companies.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're seeing some success.
Yeah.
How do you think people who are startup founders are able to then go back and use the success or the influence that they have to make SF better?
I think like literally every single startup founder who is, or anybody who runs a company in San Francisco, should at the moment use their position to like advocate for the right candidates in San Francisco. Like in our case, that's like Michael Lai, at least we think is like a reasonable candidate. Like Bilal is like probably the right person for D5. There's like Trevor for D7, I think is D7. The Mission, I think that's D7. It's not my district, so I'm not sure. But I think like if you are a person who has an audience, you should say something. I don't think you should just like allow the city to die. It's kind of silly. Like if you would like to live here and have kids here, like you should say something. And if you would like your like the people that work with you to like live here and have kids here, I think you should say something. I think it's like every other industry says stuff. Like you like who are the people supporting other candidates? It's like the electricians and shit. It's like you walk down the street and you'll see like window signs in the stores supporting candidates, and our industry does not do this for some reason. And it's ridiculous and stupid, and we just should. Like you should actually try and make the city better. And I think what happens is like people in like technology spaces assume that like they're the problem, and it's like no, you're not. You're like not at all the problem. You're the only thing that like keeps the city from going into financial collapse. Like you are not the problem. The problem is that like they refuse to build new housing for like years and years and years, and like pretending as if like San Francisco's technology industry is like bad is stupid. Like it's really stupid. No other city does this. Every other city in the world competes to have technology. And it's not like we're making sugar water. Like in our case, we're making supercomputers. Like, and who do we sell to? Like the people curing cancer and shit. Like it's the like drug discovery models and stuff. Like it's dumb. It's dumb that we like try to pretend as if one, that the like technologists in the city are not like a political force, and not should not engage in politics in any sense, even though every other industry engages in politics and every other community does. Like, and it's dumb to think that we're the bad guys. Like, I'm pretty sure the bad guy is the people who's like saying no to like the like low income housing, or just the housing in general. It's like the bad guy is the person who's like totally cool with like the fentanyl dealer standing outside the rehab clinic. Like that's not a good thing to do. The bad guy is the people who like walk down the street and like look at folks literally just like dying on the corner, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. Like we should do nothing about that. And there's like no possible solution there. Like those people aren't good. Like
100%. No, I agree with you. And it's interesting that you mention like all the other cities are trying to bring tech in. Like if you look at Austin with what Elon Musk is doing, or if you look at DeSantis in Florida with his whole like pro DeFi, pro crypto kind of like position.
San Francisco's cool.
Yeah.
This is like where the world is driven from.
100%.
Technologists will sometimes underestimate or like sort of downplay their like importance in society. But it's like, no, like technologists are like the reason you don't drink like you don't drink sewage. Like
it's true. It's true.
It's the reason that you can have this podcast in the first place. It's the reason that most people are alive, in that you like can afford or like you can feed everybody. It's the reason that you can go to a doctor, and like there is a section of both technologists and also of just like random folks in San Francisco who are like pretend as if technologists are bad, and it's just like so wrong.
You know, even within startups itself, it feels like now recently there's been an online kind of like a tone shift of like SaaS is dying. People are taught, like Chamath has his 80-20 thing. I think it was Chamath, where it's like, you know, everyone is getting subscription fatigue. People need to stop building SaaS or whatever. Especially as, you know, people start to build more generational companies, like foundational model companies, like kind of what you guys are doing as well. Do you think that we're moving in, do you think that SaaS is a race to the bottom? I saw a tweet that sounded like that.
Not really. I think there's like lots of opportunities for you to build like an interesting SaaS company if you want. I do think that like the like value in the world comes the closer you do something physical. Like I think you probably like in AI, for example, like I think you probably won't get like significant GDP impacts unless you like have some robots somewhere. I think the most important thing that most people will like care about when it comes to AI is that like, boy, is there this new drug on the market that like didn't exist before, and that drug was like created through some drug discovery model, or it's like, man, am I being driven around in a self-driving car?
That makes sense.
Or like, boy, are there like a lot of robots now that are like walking around?
This is like kind of a specific example. What do you think about AI companies? Like, you know, we had a guy named, his name is Pradi on the podcast recently. He's building Sync Labs, and their long-term goal is like, if we were speaking and we knew completely different languages and we had no overlapping languages,
sure,
we would be able to talk to each other in real time or text each other in real time or get on a call in real time.
Sure.
Our lips would match the language and as it's being real time translated. Okay. Do you see that as being something like at the end of the day, I feel like that is still, actually I wouldn't call that a SaaS, but that is still like a software AI play that has no in-person robots or anything.
Sure.
But I could see that being something that increases the GDP of even like overseas countries, because now their workers are able to perform functions for, you know, SF startups, complete English, whatever, be able to get paid in salaries that, you know, someone in SF, instead of paying 10K a month, they could pay 3K a month, which is like insane amounts of money to whoever's living there.
Yeah.
Economy of the company starts, or the country starts to increase because of it. What do you think of that?
My basic take is that you should look at like the total amount of money spent on a thing. And then if your like AI thing is like, it's way more money spent on like transporting goods than there are necessarily on like translators. That doesn't mean that the translator thing is wrong, like, or like bad. Like I think it's like a very useful thing to do in the world. I just like, broadly speaking, like if you can solve like the autonomous vehicle problem, you like, you make the entire world's like transportation industry like sort of wildly more efficient, and that will drop prices across the board, and that's very cool.
You know, and even if you were to try to go and solve the self-driving cars issue, it feels like past a certain point, it's not technological problems, but instead it becomes political problems.
Yeah, sure.
Right, and it becomes like legislative or even just like lobbying.
Sure.
Do you feel like you will run into that, you know, with the rate that you were going with through the SF Compute company?
Oh, like will we run into like political problems?
Yes.
Probably, yeah. Like I think we've been sort of asked to quote on various AI policy laws at different points because they just sort of go to the GPU clouds and they ask like, yo, what's your take? And I do think there's ways that like we could like mess up quite significantly. And then there's like some like reasonable laws that I think are like fine to have.
What are some of those reasonable laws?
I'm okay with like being cautious about selling extremely large amounts of compute to like adversarial nation states.
I agree with that,
seems like
without a doubt.
Yeah, like do you want like North Korea to like have like 600,000 H100s or something? Like I don't think they can currently acquire this in any sense. But like, you know, like some of the stuff just actually is going to be like really dangerous. Not dangerous is maybe the wrong word, but like very powerful, very like I would not want like Anduril training models somewhere that is like really close to the border of Russia. Like not for like maybe I'm sort of overreacting a little bit, but like it's like not that hard to like walk into a data center with a gun. I mean, if the prize is valuable enough, right? Like if you've spent like billions of dollars on like a defense model of some sort, right? Like
no, you're right.
Right, like you could, you know, hire a team of hackers and like try and you know, remotely get access to the data center, or you could use a tank. And like like I think at a certain level of scale, it makes sense to have regulation. I think for smaller models, for startups, for academic labs, like nobody is doing, like on SF Compute, nobody is doing anything remotely near the size that you would need to care about. But at some point, like at some point, like, okay, with 25,000 H100s, you need like 40 megawatts of power. This is like about as much as like maybe a small gas plant, like the entire gas plant. And then you want to like 10x from there. and now you're at like 400 megawatts of power, and now you're like sort of all of a small nuclear power plant, or like maybe half of a medium to large size one. And if you just think about it's just like a lot of stuff. A significant amount of compute is just going to be quite powerful. And I would be hesitant to not be a little bit cautious about that.
I've noticed some of my friends recently who got into the space just because the broader idea of entrepreneurship seemed cool to them.
Sure.
And they figured out the playbooks that they needed to figure out to be able to generate in personal profit like $50,000 a month, which is a lot of money, or a good amount of money. And so now their whole thing is like they figured out how to make the money. Mm-hmm. And so they will now be able to, and the goalpost kind of shifted. And so instead the idea was like, I want to be the next Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whatever, black turtleneck, the whole 9 yards. And now it changed to, I have political agendas, or like not me, but for them. Mm-hmm. Now it changed to, they have political agendas, and to push those political agendas, they're like, I need money for that. Tech is going to be my entry into the world of politics as someone that, has a degree, but computer science degree, I think, for them.
Yeah.
And so recently this whole concept of just like politics has been, tech to politics has been pretty interesting to me, because it was the first time my eyes had kind of been open to that.
Sure.
Do you personally have any plans of going straight from this to?
No, not really.
Is that one of those things you don't want to say on a podcast? Like, yes, I will build this company and then I will run for the presidency.
No, I just have no desire to be a politician. I think, okay, maybe I could be talked into it if I could think that it would like accomplish some reasonable goal of making sure that the world goes in the good direction, not a bad direction.
That
like
makes sense.
San Francisco Compute's entire goal is like, can we drop the price of compute across the board? It's like nobody would sell to us. We're going to make sure that the AI companies and the grad students of the world can like actually buy compute.
And so the reason I asked that question was because what those guys that I'm talking about had done was they went the VC route and then pivoted into cash flow models. You guys started off with something that looked like a very good cash flow business.
Yeah.
And you're now pivoting into the VC model instead of just sitting on that profit yourself.
Yeah, I think this is like a pretty good explanation, is that I wouldn't say we're like pivoting into it in the sense pivot sort of implies that we hadn't planned it from the beginning. And like, obviously, like lots of stuff has happened since we began, where like things we would never have expected. And we like took advantage of that. But from the beginning, it was like, okay, we're going to be able to start with something that does not look a lot like a venture business and then scale into a venture business. And the nice thing about having a cash flow business is it gives you a whole bunch of money up front to work with without having to like raise money. And if you can't raise money, then boy, do you have this nice cash flow business that will give you the ability to do more. But like specifically the thing we would like to do is drop the price of compute for everyone. Like specifically the thing we're doing is like, boy, would nobody sell to us? Boy, is it like really shitty to like be the startup that company is going to die because you don't have enough money. And like right now, if you look at the big AI rounds, everybody sort of does this thing where they say, boy, is AI really overvalued? Are these rounds like super big? And does that mean that there's an AI bubble and so on and so on? And I think what is actually happening is like playing with red dots is that the only people who are able to successfully train a model and start an AI company in any sense are the people who can raise the very, very large round, because you need that amount of money in order to just buy a long-term contract for compute. And thus, like all the people who like would have raised the smaller round, you never saw. They weren't able to do it because like they wouldn't have been able to spend that money on, like they wouldn't have been able to do anything with that money. And so I think the outcome of what San Francisco Compute would like to do is make it so you need less money from VCs, and hopefully not need any money at all if you're like going down the sort of nonprofit route. There's a whole section of like people who buy compute that is like scientists basically, and they're funded through other sources, things like CCI and Schmidt Futures and these folks. And those folks are like currently locked out, and like our whole goal is like, can we get those folks to like actually be able to buy compute all the way up to like an OpenAI scale? Well, maybe OpenAI is quite big now. But.
For you to get to that point, I'm sure at some point you have to make the switch from like spending most of your time either being technical or doing sales to then just company building.
Sure.
How much of your time right now is split between company building and like the technical? Because I guess you guys don't have to do much on sales.
Yeah. I think a lot of my time right now is spent on company building. And this might just be like both my co-founder and I we had both done startups before, but not this many people. So we're about 14 people now. And that is a shift I had not yet fully comprehended until it like occurred. I think people had told us that like right after like 7 or 8, you start to like break a little bit, in that you can't just like, you're not all in the same room at the same time, and so on and so on. And so I think there's some amount of like, if you're growing really quickly, you end up as this like unstable ship.
What things started to break once you reached 7 or 8 people on the team?
Not everybody knew what was happening at any given time. When you're a few people in a room, every person knows exactly what is happening at the same time. And when you're more than that many people, you like actually need to do communication through the rest of your team, because otherwise you get this like percolation of information to different people, and that's difficult. It's like, I get what people mean when they say that, the small company is kind of like a bicycle and you can like quickly shift it around. But then the bigger company feels more like a boat and you're like slower. And then you'd eventually get into like a high-speed rail network or something, which this is like, as you get, to the 2,000 plus people or something, you're like the ability for you to shift the entire organization.
What things did you tactically change once you started to feel like you were like the information was kind of getting disorganized?
We set up like normal management structure. Honestly, not anything particularly odd. All hands normal management structure, where like there's like an org chart.
Sure. Have you ever worked at like a big company before doing all of this stuff?
Before doing this, I did another startup, but before that, I worked at a company called Segment. And by the time I had left, it was about 300 people or so. And then I was an intern at Kindle at Amazon, but I don't think that counts for anything. I don't think I actually was aware, like self-aware at the time.
You don't think you were self-aware, like consciousness hadn't developed?
That was so long ago. I don't think like I was like alive as a human being.
So how did you end up getting into startups in the first place?
Growing up, I had very severe panic disorder and would like constantly have panic attacks. So I was like in and out of the hospital all the time.
Oh, man.
While I was working at Segment, so this is like first job out of college, I did cognitive behavioral therapy and a bunch of meditation, and that stopped the like having panic attacks every single day to not having panic attacks kind of ever again. Have not had one since then.
Oh, that's great.
In like 2 weeks. That was very cool. But one of the things you do when you like are afraid of everything because you're having panic attacks all the time is you like are doing exposure therapy all the time. And so if somebody says a thing that sounds really scary, you like go do the thing, or like whatever your fear is, you like go do the thing. And I was sitting in a coffee shop in San Francisco and somebody was talking about like Y Combinator and startups and stuff. And they were talking about their experience and it sounded really terrifying. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna apply to YC. And
shut up.
So I applied to YC and then like roped my brother into it. And then we like applied together and like did the interview, and they like literally fainted after the interview. But then we got in. And so I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this. And then I go to my boss at the time, who was like Calvin Frencho, and he was like, yeah, this seems like a good opportunity. You should probably do this. And we'll miss you and so on. But like this is a good thing for you to go do. And I was like, okay, cool. So, and then did YC as like a therapy exercise.
That might be the most interesting way anyone's ever told me they applied to YC.
Yeah, I think I like, you were mentioning before that like people start companies to like make money or like beat Steve Jobs or something. I think I sort of like found myself here awesome. in a way that is but then you like do the company so our first thing in the first startup like
this is the music one.
No, this is like before. This is like 4 years ago. Okay. 4 years ago. Started this company. Originally, it was like a mental health company, and then for like reasons that sort of every mental health company has, it ended up not working in that. And so I like went back to the Y Combinator.
What are those reasons?
Mainly, if you succeed at helping people like get through their thing, then you lose your customer.
It's like the dating app thing. If the dating app actually works, you're just making your retention worse.
Correct. Yeah. So the retention app of mental health apps are like all bad. If you can get somebody to use it at all, it's like they like immediately leave because I don't know, like either it didn't work for them or it did work for them and they left. There isn't like a state in which they like retain and it's good. So this is kind of like the standard problem of many mental health companies. And anyway, so went back to the YC partners. And I think like Dalton Caldwell was like, oh, if you like just keep trying shit for a while, you like, and like don't die, then you can just like continue forever. Like if you don't die, you win.
That's good advice, isn't it? Right? If you build a startup and you just keep going as long as you can without getting burnt out financially or mentally, eventually the company will succeed.
Correct. And I think maybe because of all the mental health stuff, I think I ended up as like super duper gritty in the sense that I didn't want to die. So I went for like 4 years just trying shit. And I think there wasn't like a thing that I was like particularly trying to do other than just not die. And so if a thing didn't work out or I felt like I was going to burn out, like whatever, rip it off and do a new thing. And this was like bad on many cases. Like I like stopped things that I probably should have continued on. And then good on some cases where like I early recognized that an idea was bad and then moved on. And I think what happened if you just so we ended up doing like 20 to 30 like products that we would like ship completely and then learn why it didn't work and then stop. And if you do that, you get super fine tuned on like what works and what doesn't. And I think you become very good at like the vague definition of like product of like.
That's super interesting because I feel like a lot of companies, especially like the ones my friends are running right now, are in similar positions where they're just like experimenting on what the next feature is, or they have like a broad problem that they want to solve and they don't know the best way to solve it yet.
Yeah.
What went into these, like each of these products that you said you fully built out and you fully shipped it. How much would you market it? How would you be able to know when it worked or when it didn't?
I think a general problem for us, and one of my co-founders described this as the Evan hype problem, is that I would do a thing and then like launch it, and then lots of people would sign up for it because they had seen like one of the other things that I had done. And then we would think, oh shit, we have product market fit. But you don't have product market fit.
Suffering from success over here.
Well, it's not good because then they immediately unsubscribe or like they don't use the thing, and then you're like, it's just like an illusion. I think if you have any sort of audience at all, and we have like maybe a tiny one, you have a little bit of people will try your thing just to try your thing. You have a lot of tire kickers, and that like makes you go on things that are not. And so then you have to like really understand how to deal with hype, and how to like, both use it when you want it and then also know that it's kind of bullshit. And so you have to design everything from first principles and understand like, why would they use this? Like, are they really using this for real? Yeah.
How would you understand that? Is it just like looking at someone's recordings in post-hog?
I think it depends on the product. At one point, we built this like Rust build farm, and my standard way I would do it is like basically Rust, the programming language, is like very slow to build notoriously. And so I would send emails to people being like, hey, our Rust builds are really slow. How did you solve it? And with that, the whole message. And then I would send this to a whole bunch of people and kind of use that to test whether or not this was like actually a real thing that they cared about. And eventually just ended up learning that the people who had the slowest Rust builds were the people who bought the shittier laptop. And so thus didn't have any money to spend on your product.
And so that's before you even tried to build a product.
I think like one co-founder was trying to sell it and one co-founder was trying to like build it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And after you found that out, did you stop working on it?
Yeah, I think we switched to a different thing.
What was the next thing?
Let's see. I think at one point we did this like chat app thing. I think just because we were like not sure what to do next, and so we were just wandering around. We would often, if we didn't know what to do next. So if you're like pivoting around, you have two options whenever you discover that the thing you're currently working on isn't working. One is that you can just quit. But our whole thing was like Dalton Caldwell told us not to die. And so like thus that is the rule. The only rule of the company was don't die. And so like you have like one option, which is to die and to just like give up. And the other option is just to try shit that is kind of enjoyable and fun so you don't get sad for a while. And so a lot of our startups would look like real normal business idea combine and then like stupid bullshit. So real normal business idea, stupid bullshit. Real normal business idea, stupid bullshit. And we would like do the stupid bullshit until we could like come up with a real normal business idea.
That's like so funny. It's like the whole bro, we should start a podcast, but it's a company.
Yeah, a little bit. It was certainly not successful as a company. I think it turns out don't die is not the only advice you should get, and for like lots of reasons.
What is the other advice?
My general take that is, if you're pivoting around a lot, I actually would hire. This is like the completely counterintuitive advice, and almost everybody will tell you this is stupid. You should not do this. This is a very dumb idea.
So why should I hire?
It is good actually to have, once you have pivoted around a lot and you actually know how to make good decisions, and I think you only know how to make good decisions if you have built a lot of products. I don't know any founder who has been successfully able to come up with something good right off the bat. then you actually do need some friction in your ability to change ideas. And if you hire people, you have people who are like, you have like a social thing around you that prevents you from switching a little bit. It actually gives you a good amount of like stability. And then you can execute on something well. Like I think a lot of times we would come up with something that in retrospect was a fantastic startup idea. And like literally somebody would later go on and do it and it'd become a really big company. This happened to us like 3 times. That's when you like know, oh yeah, actually you're like really good at picking the things, but not so good at like discovering when you should act, like not so good at like actually, like I think now I am like aware of like when you should like execute on a thing, but at the time I wasn't. Everybody will tell you that you shouldn't actually hire because, then you don't have the ability to pivot around. And like if you do, it's like a really big deal.
And then burn and then equity.
And you burn money and so on. And like your whole goal is to not die and such. But if you're confident and you're right, like if you've already pivoted around a while and you've got to a thing that you're like pretty confident is right, and you've noticed that actually your last like 4 times, like when you switched off of it, somebody else went in and did it and it became a really big company, then you end up with like extreme abilities to make high confidence bets. And when you are there, then actually, yeah, you do want to hire. You want to have your high confidence bet that you're really confident that you know about, and then you like want to strike really hard. And I think that is kind of what we did with SF Compute, is that we like knew exactly that this would work from the beginning, and had the plan set up, and just like went.
What were some of the things that you guys did when you were in this position of just trying not to die? And I'm sure you were burning money on rent, or you're burning money on hires or whatever. What were you guys doing to be able to make that last as long as possible? Were you working on like side? Hire. Did you ever have like side projects or contracts that you would take on?
No, we would make some money from various products at various points. That would like, make a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there over a month or something like that. And so we were offset our burn a little bit by just like had some products that were making like $1,000 in the background every month.
That makes sense. So, yeah. That's awesome. And then who was the first hire that you made for SF Compute once you guys realized that it was time to double down?
I think it was James. It's either James or Viv. I think several people got hired within the course of it, like a few days.
Oh, wow.
So it would either be James, Lucy, or Viv.
What were their roles? Engineering?
James ended up as like SRE / customer support and sales, and a lot. Like James sort of initially just did everything. James is incredible. If you ever meet James Hokrana, incredible dude, and ended up sort of being like in the beginning a combination of ops and like sales and customer support.
All the hats.
Just all the hats. And today he's like very excellent at being like effectively running San Francisco's Compute's SRE. So like his primary job is like to keep clusters online, and he's really good at it. Viv and Lucy were the first like programmers that we hired, and those two ended up building our cloud provider, and then ended up like as the team grew, they ended up creating sort of the infrastructure team within San Francisco Compute. My like biggest incredible statement from them is like when we like bought the cluster, and then before the cluster came online, we had like built sort of all the infrastructure you would need to run a cloud provider. This is like setting up like VMs for people, though in this case so we set up basically like VMs initially, and then we like turned the cluster online, and all our stuff didn't work, and so we had to like rebuild a cloud provider in like 2 to 3 days, and like much of this was like Viv and Lucy just sort of like rebuilt an entire cloud provider in like 2 days, on top of containers for this one, and now we're going back to VMs. But
right now, how much of the team is split between engineering and like marketing, sales, all the other stuff?
The largest portion is engineering, and then we have sort of a large portion that does procurement. This is like buying clusters, financing clusters, and then handling the operations work of setting them up. And those folks wear a lot of hats within SF Compute as well. I think it's like mostly split into procurement and engineering, and then new project.
Sweet.
Yeah.
New project.
This is the thing I cannot talk about.
Gotcha.
But this is a thing that you will see in like a few months.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I asked this question kind of when I'm wrapping things up. If we were to do this podcast again in a year, which hopefully we will now, to talk about this next thing, what would you want to have accomplished by then to consider the past year a success?
I think we will literally be dead in a year, or we will be the most important company in AI. I think that this is like really the only two options as far as I can tell. It's like either our like whole bet thing will just like kill us in some way, or we will be very clearly and distinctively one of the most important companies in AI.
Well, damn, dude, I hope you're alive.
Yeah, I mean, same. Like, we kind of only have one goal at SF Compute, and it is like to allow people to buy compute who previously could not buy compute and for cheaper prices, and also to like allow just broadly to make the market efficient. And I think within a year, we will either look back at this moment and we'll be like totally dead, or we will have successfully made the market very efficient.
Well, I hope you win. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.